won't be able to do that anymore as we go. Anyway, we are live now. So give me 1 sec. I've just got to punch this into Facebook, and we should multi-stream there. And we're ready to go. So welcome everybody for Brainfood Live on Air, episode 37. 37 episodes. You know what? We're going to hit 40. I think it's a brilliant number to try and hit, because we're trying to do this every week. But obviously, availability and so on between you and I, Adam, is not always consistent. So we've been, I think 40 is a very good number. I don't know what you think about that.
I love that number. It's round. It's got 4 in it.
There you go. We endorse the number 40. Brilliant. All right, listen, welcome everybody. It's fantastic to have you on the show. We're very excited about this particular episode because we're talking about something that we both care about, which is online recruiter communities, online communities in general, and why they are valuable and what makes a good community good, because we're all part of communities that are amazing, and yet we're also part of communities that are not so good. So how can we figure out and learn a little bit from that? And we've got some brilliant guests who I think are amazing community builders in our industry, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them as they come on. But as ever, before we dive into that, we need to talk about recruiting brain food. So Adam Gordon, have you read last week's issue, and what did you think?
Yeah, I have read it. No, I didn't read all of it. I read almost all of it. No, I'll tell you. I read almost all of it. I read and I read all the things that I was immediately attracted to, except for a couple of things that I knew I would rather hear from you than read it. So first off, can you tell me about? I'd rather hear this from you than read it. Tell me about hitman who hires hitman who hires hitman who hires hitman who hires hitman who tells police. Yeah. What is that? What was that about?
That's a brilliant story. It's a story coming out of China, I think, where basically you've got a dude. There was some sort of real estate conflict, and one of the people who were involved in the conflict decided the solution was to kill the other person, and he hired a hitman to do the job. And it's just an outsourcing story where you hired it to a hitman to do the job. Hitman thought, fine, probably the best thing I can do is delegate this down, to outsource it to somebody else at a lower rate and make the margin on top. And it keeps doing that until the fourth hitman ends up with like a measly amount of money to do the hit, and decides to actually tell the guy who's the target. I say, listen, mate, you pay me to tell you this, and we'll arrange a fake death or something, and we'll both get out of it. And then, of course, the police got involved and eventually arrested all the hitmen and arrested the guy who kind of organized it. But the reason why I shared it in Recruiting Brainfood, because I think that's a classic story of outsourcing. I mean, you hear this type of stuff all the time. You go and engage an offshore business or even a remote business, let's say, and you've got no visibility as to actually who's on the job. And of course, one of the ways in which they need to make money is to delegate that down even further. And it's like, how many times do you do that before you end up getting, a person who you never dealt with or never would have given the job to actually involved? And I think this is a story about outsourcing.
It's a cautionary tale about the perils of outsourcing and the perils of cheap labor.
Yep, and you know what? Having said that, rather than just throw the outsourcers under the bus on this, but it's also the true to case when you've got fairly high-end agencies doing this. So you used to work for one of the big five, for instance. How do they win business? Your best partner comes in, wins the business, and it cascades down to some graduate to do the job. At some point, it just gets banged down. So the idea that you're not getting the person you paid for, basically. Which, I think the story is relevant because it's relevant in recruiting as well. We win business and it's given to a young person to deliver. Typically, that's not the person on the job that actually the client that previously engaged. There's implications there, which is why, in fact, the blockchain aficionados out there think, blockchain might be one of the solutions of this type of problem of connecting people with the work. And you know, one of the we'll have to run a blockchain episode at some point. I know everyone hates blockchain, by the way, a very unpopular topic on Brainfood, but it is one of the things that might actually solve this outsourcing type of problem. Anyway,
well, that sounds like a Coen Brothers movie, doesn't it? In real life,
yeah,
is what that one sounds like. Yeah. Okay, onto other things that I looked at in a bit more detail. So Yellow's ultimate guide to recruitment operations. Operations. That's a kind of I guess it's a 2019 thing, isn't it? It didn't really exist until recently. I get centers of excellence, I guess, where the sort of forerunner to the recruitment operations teams. The recruitment operations includes process, legals, technology, all of the infrastructure around an organization's talent acquisition.
Yeah, it's inspired from it's inspired from software engineering. Recruiting take a lot of inspiration from software engineering, of course, and they had a department called DevOps, which typically in that setup, these people are ex-developers typically, but they don't do the development anymore, and their job is basically to create the infrastructure so that products and software do get released more smoothly. And it's taking inspiration from that to say, okay, we need some ex-recruiters in a specific department whose job is to optimize efficiency of the group. And it's not necessarily, these people will not carry headcounts, they will not do traditional recruiting, but they'll look at all of the process flows and all of the tooling and all of the systems and get optimal usage out of it. So I think it's a growing topic. I've actually created it as a new category into Recruiting Brainfood. So if people want to check out more topics on this, you can actually go to the Recruitment Larder. A lot of people actually criticize my naming it the Larder, but hey, you know what? It's a Larder. This is the search engine we've built on the Recruiting Brainfood domain, which I'm sharing in the chat stream there. And just search for recruiting operations, and there'll be all of the recruit RecOps type content will be collected there. But yeah, the post that Yellow did is a massive ultimate guide of, and it's you've got to read it. Simple as that. It's
excellent. Yeah, it was great. Absolutely, It was really good. So, what do people have against the Larder?
I had some criticism, friendly criticism I might add, that basically it was a very old English term, and a non-native English speaker might not understand what it is. And I totally took that on board, but then I rejected it because I thought, you know what, I need to go with the food concept with Brainfood.
Yeah,
you know, it's all food.
Yeah,
so that's how it's going to be. Yeah, Stan hasn't got a clue. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, part of the court, Stan.
Where you keep your salt and your butter and your seasonings and your things like that. A pantry. Yeah, that would be a good one as well.
Yeah, there was some dispute on whether it's a pantry as well. So anyway, go ahead.
Fairtube.
Yes.
Yeah, Fairtube campaign. Excellent. So YouTubers have been kind of trying to organize like kind of trade union for quite some time, and they've been reasonably successful with it as well. They've been more successful than people on other social networks like Instagrammers and stuff. So the campaign is all about getting what they're worth, and it's an extension of the kind of trade union concept.
Yep, exactly right. And I think we're starting to emerge. We're starting to see the emergence of different ways in which labor is organizing against the platform. And this one's particularly interesting because it's a creative group of people. They're not gig workers. These are individuals that basically produce content and drive YouTube views, I guess. But the platform is so overwhelmingly powerful because it can dictate the terms, it can sort of deplatform people, it can do all kinds of stuff. And what Fairtube is basically a campaign of prominent YouTubers getting together and seeing whether they can collectively bargain with the platform to say, look, we want this. Can you do this? Otherwise, we'll down tools, or they'll say stuff on their videos which might criticize YouTube and stuff like this. So I think a really interesting development. And as more and more people get into what is now called the passion economy, people who basically are creators or curators of content, or do some stuff where they're making money off an audience. They're organizing in this way. I think is very similar to how in the industrial era you had workers kind of getting together and organizing against factory owners. So really interesting development there.
So my only question about it is, like, if so it's all about making sure that people get their fair share and, you know, they get rewarded fairly and stuff like that. If I'm Evan Fong or I'm PewDiePie or Zoella or somebody, then like I'm already earning 10 million a year. Why am I trying to get, why do I think I should be getting more? It's like, it's not quite just for people who, it's not just for people who are making like pennies off every view.
No, but you realize that people like PewDiePie aren't necessarily backing the campaign. So the people in the stratosphere, they don't give a damn because obviously they're making tons anyway. But this group of people, they're individuals that might have 10,000 subscribers. So enough to just about get away with doing it full time. And some of the quality of the videos they produce is extraordinarily good. So you can see it takes a huge amount of time to an effort and research and all the rest of it to actually get it done. But they're on their own in terms of how to monetize, which is typically through product placements or sponsorship and stuff like this. But the outcome of it is YouTubers are not united as an overall group, but as a segment that are getting together and organizing on the platform.
Yeah. Okay. So Yale have revealed that your accent is going to potentially throw off some bias. And so if you sound like you've got quite a neutral sort of accent, then people are probably going to think more positively about you. If you've got like some sort of big regional accent, people are going to think slightly less of you. And I'm kind of like, yeah, this is probably the first, this is really obvious, is it not?
Yeah, we all agree with that. I mean, there's no doubt that there's a hierarchy as to accents. You know, what is a positive accent compared to what is a negative one? And unfortunately, it seems that people make decisions within microseconds of hearing it, and that informs how they assess. So this is a huge implications for when you're recruiting and interviewing people, telephone screening, doing video interviews, getting the person in person. It will make a massive difference as to how you progress that way. And of course, in the UK, of course, received pronunciation, your BBC English, let's say, that's your premium accent, your prestige accent. And you can have the same candidate speaking that compared to, let's say, Scouse, which is considered to be a comedy accent, but oftentimes not considered seriously. And that has huge implications as to the career trajectory of those people. So I argued in the copy that this is an additional argument for our favorite robot animatronic head to do the interviewing. Tengai unbiased, because it will literally not care, or at least you could program it not to care how this person sounds and just process the content, and then come out with the results. So, you know, and I know a lot of people have been very animated. See what I did there? Very animated against sort of Tengai, but I think here's a classic example of it's an application for basically an embodied head to do an interview, aside from anything else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Jamie's just made a good point, which is in the world of call centers, they've got a list of the most trusted accents, and Scottish comes number one, and that's why Scotland is such a hotbed of call center operations. The Northeast, Hung, where you're from, that is also a big an accent that's very popular on the telephone.
Salt of the earth, mate. I mean, the stereotype is the salt of the earth. You know, you're trustworthy, you know, working class person, which obviously is nonsense. And then I think least trusted is probably Estuary English. You know, everyone thinks you're a Cockney spiv.
Even though you sound intelligent, potentially.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, Birmingham accent is widely considered to be discredited. I mean, how many CEOs do you know speak with a Brummie accent? I would say
or Cornish.
Right. I don't know about Cornish. Cornish.
I better stop slagging accents, Adam.
No.
But one thing that's interesting is, you know, Matt Alder.
Yeah.
He's actually Cornish, but he's got a very kind of neutral sort of almost Londony kind of accent.
Yeah.
He gets almost all of his viewers on his podcast. They're almost all in the USA. He told me this when we were in Paris together 2 weeks ago, and I said that's probably because they think they probably give more kudos to you and your intelligence because of the type of accent that you've got.
Yeah, no doubt. No, there's no doubt.
English.
Yeah. But the Brits, basically, I mean, again, you go on context, but the Brits have got a very reputable accent in all kinds of territories, and it's considered very welcoming. And you look at it from an international perspective. The Irish person, that's got a well-liked accent because everyone, it's very musical. Everyone loves everyone loves to apply the stereotype. The Irish people are all good crack and great laugh and all the rest of it. But again, you probably have a credibility issue at senior level because of the stereotype as it is. So yeah, it's very, very interesting, that study. I definitely recommend people check it out. And like I say, what is the solution? We make these sort of assessments in microseconds. And it seems to me that rather than try and make an effort to deprogram everyone, like deprogram entire societies, how do you do that? We kind of got to think about using technology to help us here, which robotic heads might help us with.
So I just wonder if with globalizations, going the way that it is, I just wonder, Brexit aside, of course, I wonder if we all end up with much more similar accents in 1,000 years than we do today.
There's already definite Americanisms coming into an internet speak, if you like, is a global accent as well. So we are mixing and matching. But what I think happens is that the people who generate accents typically, or change accents, typically are the youth. They're the ones that really are radical experiments linguistically. And what they do will guide us. So whether there's going to be a global lingua franca in terms of how it all works, I don't know. But definitely, I think linguistic homogeneity is happening. Everyone's English language standard is definitely higher than it ever was before. I think English probably has won the argument in terms of it being the default language of business globally. It probably has, though. I think at one point, 25 years ago, France was still arguing the case there. Maybe different languages. But basically, the internet is English, and that's had a profound impact. If I was speaking to some Czech podcasters the other day, and they were strategically doing their podcast in their second language, English, because they realized that their global appeal will be zero if they did it in their native Czech. So if you're looking at growth, and everyone cares about growth and audience, then you have to do it default in English. This includes blogging, it includes writing, everything. Basically, it's won the argument in my view. Anyway,
a lot of boomers around the world speak English because of the Beatles and Elvis.
Yep. Yeah, I can believe that as well. Cultural power, man. The cultural power of the English language is huge. And the countries that speak it natively probably don't understand that. It's a huge competitive advantage on one side, but at the same time, it can easily become a competitive disadvantage because, you've got basically monolingual populations in Anglo-Saxon areas, if you like, very, very poor with second languages. You go anywhere, major capital in Europe, everyone is so fluent in English as well as their native language. And you think, okay, maybe they have a competitive advantage in that side as well. So anyway.
Okay, I've still got a couple more if that's all right.
That's all right.
So, I mean, the report, we kind of talked, we talked about this last week, but I still think it's worth mentioning. Your employer brand should repel talent.
Yes.
That report, I agree with that. I think you don't want everybody applying for your jobs. If you've got a specific type of culture within your organization, you don't want people turning down the job after 2 interviews because they don't like the culture. You need them to know what it is up front. So I do agree with that, although you've got to water that down in certain circumstances. So if you're a retailer or you are if you're running call center operations, for example, I don't think you can go in with something that is like, this is our culture. It's quite extreme, and it's not for 80% of you because you've got to hire 80% of the local population. So it works in head office environments. It works in companies where they're not hiring huge volumes. I think So the next one was, I'm just going to skip over Talentree's 2019 CRM implementation report because I don't personally really stand for it. Lyft's machine learning interview. So for software engineers, yeah. So I mean, again, they're telling you this is what we do. So it's really ideal for people that are interested in working at Lyft, and that's a great company, by the way. I think it's a really good business.
Yeah, you know what I like about this particular example is that it's not only telling people a little bit about, you know, how, if like lifting the hood a little bit about how they do their things, but it's a great bit of employer branding, inbound marketing. And I've just shared the link there. Basically, the engineering team of Lyft have just basically broken down how they make assessments and how they recruit their ML engineers. And of course, there's a call to action at the end saying, hey, we're recruiting for these folks. So you can imagine a lot of people reading this would be ML engineers that are interested in figuring out, oh, this is how you pass interviews generally. And of course, they then get the call to action to say, oh, we can go in straight away. That's just a Medium post. It's a blog post, a bit of content. But that was widely shared in places like Hacker News, for instance. And it's a very clever and easy to do it tomorrow recruiting hack, I think. Talk about how you recruit, and it turns into a best advert ever.
Yeah, no, it does. Unless you're LinkedIn and your head of recruitment lays out, here's the 8 steps that you need to hire somebody. Oh, by the way, it's going to take you about 14 years before they're actually starting the job. That one kind of backfired a bit. I don't think that's one that you included in Brainfood for some reason.
No, you know what? Because I put it in the Facebook group, and I was hoping, and it actually generated quite a amount of discussion there. And if for people who are not familiar with this, basically what happened was LinkedIn Talent Solutions basically produced a schedule of how their recruiting process worked, and they put kind of timing on the stages, and everyone was just appalled at how long it would take. Something like 8 weeks or something, or 2 weeks to generate a job description and so on. And they got a lot of opprobrium for that. Although some defending views basically were arguing, you know what, if you took away the idea of if you took away the timing of it, the structure itself was pretty sound, and that was actually the main point. But no doubt it wasn't a great bit of PR for those guys. It wasn't the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The only other thing I wanted to just kind of mention was in terms of the recruitment tech market, you've mentioned some of the deals that were happening last week. With, of course, Vonk taking a really significant investment from Capital D into the jungle, raised 20 million. And so there's just been a lot going on in there, and so I'm looking forward to seeing the bottom of the newsletter this week as well for further updates from the community.
There's actually no news. I'm totally reliant on people sending me stuff on this, and no one sent me anything this week. So that segment will be empty. So if anybody's got any interesting news to share, please send me it. I can't have the time to scroll the internet for this. I'm totally dependent on the community to source this up.
All right. So Smashfly on Monday, Smashfly were announced as acquired by Symphony Talent, and that's the big one.
That is the big one.
Yeah, it's the big one. But it's been covered kind of everywhere. So.
Exactly. Everyone's covered that, so everyone knows the story there. And actually, George LaRocque had a very good interview on this, and Chad and Cheese have got a good interview on that as well. So if you don't know those two podcasts as well, you should check them out, no doubt about it. Someone shared the links to George's podcast and also to Chad and Cheese, because we got to move on with the rest of the show. And we're talking about communities, Adam. You and I both care about communities, probably in slightly different ways. Me is more of a kind of an organic builder and supporter of communities. You as an organic builder and supporter of communities, but you also have technology solutions that help with this. And one of the things I think we're both pretty enthusiastic about is the existence of these places. They've personally been hugely valuable for me because it's great to learn, great to connect. Great to build brand. I mean, there's all kinds of value attached to building recruitment, sort of online recruitment communities. So before we start bringing our guests on, I just wanted to ask you the question I'm going to ask them. What do you think makes a great community? Because we've also been part of communities that are not so great. So what are the differences here?
Well, funnily enough, about 10 years ago, I was talking at an event in Birmingham, and I was asked, like, have you got any specific tips around how to build a good community? And I said, yeah, I've got 50. And I'm going to send you the document. And I said I'll send it to everybody that was in the room. There was about 20 or 30 people in the room. I then got on the train and wrote the 50 tips for creating a great online community. And that's because we'd been spending a lot of focus in a previous business. We'd spent a lot of focus on helping organizations to create online communities. But the big ones for me are there needs to be rules. There needs to be a distinctive kind of experience. All of the members need to have things in common. There needs to be some kind of format. So it can't just be a free-for-all. There needs to be things that people can expect happening every week. Yeah. There's a lot of others as well, but that's some of the big ones that if you get those things right, you've got a good chance. The theme has to be distinctive.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I'll take away. And one of the things I'm trying to do with Recruiting Brainfood on the Facebook group is to keep it to theme. And I've probably been a little bit slacker on that than I should be, because I don't want it to be there as a help group, for instance, even though I want people to get support. But, there's bigger groups out there. Recruiters Online, I got 10,000 people on there. You're more likely to get support there than you are in Recruiting Brainfood, where there's only 1,500 people.
You're more likely to get torn down there as well. So
right. Yes.
They have all the different, you can get, Recruiters Online I contribute to it regularly. I think it's a great group, but it's the Wild West.
Is it a great group? A lot of people are critical of it.
I like it.
I actually think it's the best group, because I do enjoy it, and I think the Animal, who I actually invited on the show, and he's probably watching now. So Animal, you have a permanent kind of invitation to come on the show if you wish. But yeah, I think he does generally a great job of cultivating and curating that. 17,000 people, and it's very hard to do. I think he's the only admin. He in himself, I think, is quite controversial, and some of the stuff he posts probably is problematic. And I want to leave that to one side as a separate discussion. But his general moderation and creation of the experience for a lot of people in the community, I think, is a good lesson on how to do it. But anyway, moving on. Let's bring on some of our guests here, because we've got 3 people here. I'm going to bring on Piret first, actually, because she is in Estonia. And Estonia is basically 2 hours ahead, so it's already into the weekend. So I don't want to keep her. I don't want to keep Piret away from her well-deserved weekend break any longer than is required. But let me just see whether she's got that invite. I think you should be there. Oh, Piret, if you want to check your email or something. Oh, here she is.
Yes, hello.
Hello, how are you, Piret? Great to see you.
Good to see you boys as well, and everybody else who are tuning in. Yes, it is quite late Friday evening, already waiting to get the day to be done.
Right, so listen, firstly I want to thank you for hanging on, and I also want to say we're not going to keep you on for long, so I want to let you go soon, okay? And you can get on with the rest of your day. But Piret, for the people who don't know you, I just wanted to see whether you want to introduce yourself very quickly. What do you do, and also the communities that you've kind of helped build.
So yeah, name is Piret. Some of the people who are speaking mainly English, they like to call me Pirate, and I'm kind of okay with that as well. What I do today is I'm working in the software development company called Nortal, which is this kind of name of Nordic talents. So we are building awesome tools related to the digitalization of e-governance and healthcare and stuff like that. But I think that the topic that the people are most interested about is the community side. And what we have done in Estonia is that we have built a community of Estonian recruiters. And we started in online with a Facebook group called Straight Outta Candidates. And we moved from there to the monthly based events, which are called Recruitment Thursday events. So as the name goes, you can assume that the events most probably are taking place on Thursdays. And yesterday, actually, it was our 22nd event.
Amazing. Fantastic stuff. I've just shared the links to those groups. I mean, they're both on Facebook, I guess. But
Yep.
you have a rule, don't you? Did you have to be Estonian to join these things? I've just randomly shared them, so I apologize if
No,
a rule.
no, you don't have to be Estonian because when we created the group, actually, both the straight out candidates and also this kind of in real life meetings, then our aim is to speak in English, and our events are also in English language because the Estonian market from the recruitment point of view is also moving towards to the fact that there are English speaking recruiters here in Estonia. And the community, when we started it, the aim was early from the beginning, from the first post that we did and the straight out the candidates, that it will be in English.
Wow, you know what? This actually leads us back to the very start of our conversation where we're talking about accent and English and stuff like this. I think this is going to be really interesting because most of the audience listening to my show, I assume, are probably English language natives. Now, so this might be very weird for them to think about, oh, a group deciding to speak in a second language for this purpose of kind of internationalizing and globalizing. Was that ever a controversial thing in the group? Or did people try to defend their nature? Hey, we should speak Estonian, we're in Estonian, that kind of thing?
No, actually, no. We do have some events that we are still running in Estonian, but then we also announce it pre-hand as well. But in the group, we have never had this kind of situation that, no, we all want to speak in Estonian. And also we just don't have only Estonians in the group, but also people from other countries, people whose native language is not Estonian, but they're living and working in Estonia.
Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of inclusivity. Actually, English is the language to use to make sure everyone has kind of got the same level of understanding of and able to participate in the group.
Yeah, it has never been a problem during our events or the community discussions as well. When the people first join into straight out the candidates, then some of them, yes, do make their error and they start the discussion or the dialogue in Estonian. But then we, as an admin, we always send them the personal message that, hey, our community is in English.
Wow, that's actually segues. Sorry, Adam, you're about to say something about.
Go on.
No, I was about to say it's an example of community management that you actually do need to correct people who breach some of the guidelines, right? So you can't just let it slide. You got to get on it and say, hey, listen, this is the philosophy of the group. You got to keep pace with this. So that's a great example to hear from straight from the top.
Mm-hmm.
But tell us about your team. How many people are in your team in your day job?
In my day job, in Nortal today, what we have is this kind of 3 separate groups actually in the TA. So we have the international, we have the Baltics and the Scandinavia, and then we have the US. But in general, all together, we have 16 people in the TA, but we are covering quite a lot of countries and yeah.
But what that means is Recruitment Thursday is a really good talent community for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think.
How many people have you hired? How many people have you hired from Recruitment Thursday?
As a recruiter, let me think. I pretty much know everyone who is in the community, but we haven't hired that much during the last years to the TA team. But I know that there are companies who have hired through our events, and this is also definitely a really good opportunity. So one of the things that I definitely would like to highlight in this case is that how the Recruitment Thursday events are happening is due to the help of different companies. So every event we are actually going to visit a different company in Estonia who is talking about their processes. And we are not talking only about the recruitment, but we are also talking about the sourcing, the onboarding, the culture, employer branding, stuff like that. And if they have the need of the recruitment of recruiters at this point, then they have been pointing this out as well. And I know that there has been at least some of the dialogues that have opened from those events and that have led to the hires as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? That's amazing. I can imagine an amazing experience there because you've got essentially a a rotation, and if you're a member of the group, you can go ahead and actually see different companies and get a really good behind under the hood type of feel for a lot of these major businesses in Estonia. So that sounds like a really good group to join. I think I need to time my next visit. So there's a Recruitment Thursday event. I'd love to check it out.
You're probably coming for the Sourcing Summit Estonia, yes?
Oh yeah, I'm locked in for that, 100%. In fact, Piret, if you want to share the link to that, then please do so on the chat stream.
Yes.
I will say to the people listening to this or watching it, Sosu Tallinn this year was one of the best events that I've ever been to. Such a fantastic experience, not only for the content of the event, but the beauty of the country, the hospitality of the people, and just the overall experience of it. It's definitely something you should just take some time out and go to. So, and it's up and ready. So yeah, amazing. Do turn up to that
It's
event.
on my list. Definitely. I definitely want to go to that.
You'd spoil it, Adam. I think that your presence would probably be deleterious to the experience for everyone else, mate.
Well, with the Spider-Man kilt on, come on.
Maybe so. Okay, Piret, listen, time is pressing, and I don't want to keep too much of your day. But if you could give one kind of example or one bit of advice to a young community organizer out there that's thinking of building something like a Recruitment Thursday, what would that be? Like, what are the things they have to get right for it to be a great community?
I think that you have to understand what is the need of the market, and this is something that you are not doing alone. The beauty of the community is the people who belong to the community. So asking the questions, open the dialogue, and one thing that has made the Recruitment Thursdays and Straight Out Candidates quite successful, I would say, is that we don't communicate only in online, but we have seen face to face. So you have to provide something that makes meaning to people. The insight to the market, sharing your own skills, sharing your own this kind of pains as well. It's not only that we are living in the place where everything is kind of shiny and everything is awesome, but we do have sharing the pains as well. And if we are talking about Estonia, then it's like 1.3 million population of people. So it's really, really small, and the tech scene is really blooming. So I don't want to say the sentence of war of talent, but this kind of shortage of talent is definitely really huge here, and not to be afraid of sharing this kind of pains and wins as well, because in the finish line, it's not for this kind of benefit of you personally as a recruiter, but it's a benefit for the candidate who is your customer in that sense. So if everyone is learning the hacks and tricks how to provide better service to the candidates, then this is something that everyone will benefit in the finish line. So we don't have this kind of search pictures anymore that recruiters or scum or whatever.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Piret. Thank you very much for that. Two things I'm taking away from that. It can't only be online, it has to also be offline. So you've got to kind of embed the community with in-person connections. That's something I've got to think about in recruiting Brainfood, obviously, because we're 100% online. And secondly, it is about being honest. Being honest about sharing the reality of what you're doing. So you're not pitching or marketing or whatever. You're just being open, and then making people feel safe to be open. I think is important. Is the unstated element there.
Yeah. Fun fact, actually, the second event that we run years ago, it was called Recruitment Fuck-Ups. And
we need that back. We need that back.
So yeah,
that should be a track. That should be like a theme in every event where people present the worst example, the examples of failure. Because sometimes we get a kind of success bias all the time when we're just listening to these great case studies. But in fact, we need to hear about the stuff that went wrong and what do we learn from it.
Exactly.
So anyway, listen, Piret, you're marvelous. Thank you very much for spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're always welcome on the show, and I look forward to catching up with you soon. I need to book my ticket to Estonia, of course.
Yes.
And yeah, have a good weekend. See you later, Piret.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Isn't she cool? I love Piret.
Yeah, cool. 1.3 million people and big tech scene, that just, standards just go up because of that. Yeah. They've also got the fastest internet speed in Europe, I think.
They do. They absolutely do. And not only that, but they've got a really progressive attitude to digital. I think the distinction between how Estonia have played it compared to Lithuania and their close neighbors and Latvia is quite remarkable in the sense that they've just really pushed forward. You can get e-citizenships, for instance. They make it easy for entrepreneurs to relocate. They definitely want to reconnect and kind of be a very new type of business. So a new type of country. So a very interesting place to visit, and some great recruitment expertise there as well. Okay, coolio. Listen, we've got other people to bring on. So I'm going to bring on, I tell you who is going to be super interesting to talk to. We have Shannon Pritchett on the line.
So while we're waiting for Shannon to come on, Lee's just made a good point, actually. Estonia's voting platform is built on a blockchain, and that's actually, a great point. It's one of the few examples of blockchain like really functioning and in a way that is at scale, very, very effective.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's loads of great examples. I'd love to actually learn a little bit more outside of the recruiting industry about what goes on there, because there's no doubt that, there's lessons to be learned. I mean, there's going to be people that kind of a little bit churlish and say, oh, it's because it's a small country, you can do lots of experimentation. And that's true. But at the same time, we have to learn from them, Yep, that's true. By Bill, you can buy the e-citizenship. It doesn't cost a lot. And probably something we should all try and do. Oh, and there she is. Shannon, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. Very good to see you. Shannon,
hey, Adam.
You're a super famous person, so you probably don't need to introduce yourself. But
I doubt that.
For the one viewer that's hiding under the rock for the last 20 years, can you just introduce yourself and what do you do?
Sure. I'm Shannon Pritchett. I live in Dallas, Texas. I am currently in Austin, Texas, though, and I work for CareerXRoads.
Amazing. And that was a recent shift, wasn't it? It was like a massive news.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Shannon's leaving and going somewhere else. So tell me about a little bit about what the project is at CareerXRoads for you.
Yeah, so I'm going to be running community. So I'm really excited to be here to talk about that. Also research and benchmarks, and just help out with the day-to-day operations. We're a small team of 4. But our footprint is quite big. So we all have a big piece to fill, and Jerry has a big hat.
Do you want to just explain, Shannon, a bit about what CareerXRoads is generally? Because unless you're like an elite talent acquisition leader in a Fortune 500 company, you might not have come across it.
Yeah, so CareerXRoads is a community for talent acquisition leaders. We get together in a meeting-like format, and we exchange ideas and share information. And the goal of the group is, we all have a purpose, is to drive change and try to keep or prevent issues from coming forward that talent acquisition leaders do face. My role is coming on. It's not only where I work with these leaders that are part of our community, but also some of the practitioners and other people that will become future leaders. So we're expanding our reach a little bit. We brought on Charles and China Gorman to cover HR. So we're kind of expanding outside of TA leadership and looking to do some local activities too with some of our members. So slowly but surely growing.
Amazing. And you were brought in with a kind of a specific project on the community side, Shannon, because I think you obviously have had a really interesting career path yourself, working as a recruiter at the coalface, but then moving into this really fascinating role where you were kind of almost setting up SourceCon type communities and SourceCon chapters everywhere and doing that type of stuff. So you must have learned a huge amount about what makes a great community. How do you make a community stick? It's not just, hey, we're doing this now. How do you make sure it embeds and people actually do it? Have you got any guidance for us on that, Shannon?
Yeah, I had a long road to success with the SourceCon group. I was lucky enough that the SourceCon community existed long before I was in that role. And so, my goal was just to elevate it a little bit. And I think we did. But for someone who's just getting started, especially with the local chapters, is you have to find your general purpose, which Piret was talking about. I think she used the word mission. I like to use the word purpose. So each community has to have that purpose. And also you have to do it with people. That's the biggest success I learned at SourceCon. It wasn't just me running things. We had probably anywhere from 80 to 120 people behind the scenes that were strong volunteers, and they were passionate about the same things our community was passionate about. I'm a big believer that general passion attracts passionate people. And I typically have that passion if it comes to sourcing or leadership or something like that. And so, I try to find other passionate people to just help attract more people. Not everyone in a community is going to be passionate and have the same goals that are aligned with, but that's why you build it with people. I think everyone in a community also needs to have responsibility and to share that purpose. It can't just be one person. I'm amazed that we're talking about Michael earlier, our animal, with his recruiters online, and it amazes me that he does that by itself. But I think successful people thrive off of the help of others, and it's definitely not a one-person job. So I would say share the responsibility with the general passionate people in your community.
Well, Michael has me on his animal show about once every 4 weeks. So, he definitely gets other people involved.
That's true, but he does all of the stuff himself. I don't think he has any sort of support network. He doesn't have volunteers. Actually, he does. He has a few people on the show that's quite regular on his talk show. So they're always there. But
yeah, he has Jerry, Amy, that group.
That's right. And so Jerry Albrecht actually runs a very successful Facebook group as well on his side. So I think there's some great examples of how this works, and you've already shared some good insights with us here, Shannon. Quick question might be tough for you to answer, but there must have been a scenario where you set up a community or you launched something and it didn't work. Can you tell us what lessons you might have learned from a kind of an unsuccessful community that you were part of?
Yeah, I can't think of a community that's failed. I think I've tried to start things, on my personal life, get other people involved, groups, wine clubs, for example, girls' night out stuff. And it usually fails when people lose that passion. We've had SourceCon chapters fail before. We've had SourceCon chapters be wildly successful. And I look at the successful ones, I compare it to the ones who weren't successful. And I think it's just a little lack of ambition. And not necessarily the people running it don't have the ambition, but, we get busy in our day-to-day lives and we forget to, what motivates us, what inspires us, what our general purpose was in the beginning. And when you lose that drive, that community kind of fails with it. But that's why you need to build it with people. So even if, can't be just one person, if that one person at the helm kind of loses their passion, you have a whole army of support that can lift you back up. And that's what I think the successful communities have, and the ones that don't kind of lose fire once the leader does lose fire. And that happens from time to time. I mean, it's hard to, because you can't look at communities and just be like the professional side. You got to look at the personal side, which we typically align ourselves more with communities like that. And I think when you can relate the two, professional and personal, that's when you can have a little bit more success.
Yeah. Very good point. So basically if you like, a leadership group might not be the right way to describe it, but at least a group of people that take active a role in building that community out. And we actually see sort of these people have different titles sometimes. You have an owner, a moderator, an admin, and stuff like that. Are those roles very well defined? I mean, let's say an online group, for instance. What would you look for in a moderator? What makes a good moderator? Isn't an owner of the group, you're the owner, let's say, and you've appointed someone as a moderator. What would you look for in terms of their characteristics and qualities there?
Voluntold. Easy. And online, monitor, you want someone who, first off, lives, breathes, dies within that group. You can see people who comment heavily or heavily, that are constantly on there. I think any Facebook group, you can see who the most active people are within that group. Well, the monitor is going to be the one who's the most active. It's not a hard skill set to monitor a group. It's really not. But someone who's already in that group and who's obviously passionate about it because they're, very active in it. That's what's going to make the best monitor. If you look at anything, offline, or maybe you're doing some type of a newsletter or something like that, I would go with any volunteers who set up and want to be kind of the curators of that or the editors. But you have to give the responsibility back to the people that you're working with. And so definitely divide and conquer the roles. I'm supposed to be leading the SourceCon DFW chapter in Dallas, Fort Worth. But we divided the responsibilities amongst several people, and there's tons of meetings that go on without my presence or with me planning or knowing anything about. And that's what makes the community so good, is that even like the owner of the group doesn't have to get involved as, you want to be because of a busy schedule.
Yeah, and then there's also there's an element of letting go there, isn't there? So a lot of people have that. You don't want to let control go, but that ultimately means that you are the single source of failure for this. If something does happen, or you disappear or you lose interest or whatnot, and then that community might suffer from it.
Oh, you have to let go of control. It's we have people who run for, like, if you look at SourceCon, and I know Mark Tortorici, who is in that editor job now, he's doing the same thing because it was working. Give different groups and responsibilities to people. The Welcome Wagon, for example, at SourceCon, I think you both have seen it. It's an army of volunteers that just want to make everyone's first SourceCon experience the best. And we're going to do the same thing at CareerXRoads. We're looking for a welcome wagon for new members. I think it's a great idea for any community out there, right? Because that initiation, that welcoming is so important to new members. It's like, the first time you got your newsletter, right? It's very exciting. You get all that bits of information in it, and it's like cool to be part of the recruiting Brainfood. But that first initial impression is so important. And you can have different people run it. We're looking to do that at CareerXRoads. We did that at SourceCon. It's not something I ever got involved in. I just picked the right people to lead it, and it took care of itself. And so I completely let control of that. And that was what really, in my opinion, built the community. It's when you had other people run different bits of it that attracted people that made it successful.
You know what? Really good point. I think it's basically onboarding. We're recruiters, we talk about onboarding, we know about that, but we probably don't think actually when new people join your community, they also need to have an onboarding experience and feel positive and feel welcome about it, and also give them some guidelines as to how to behave. So, I'm just thinking it might feel like you're the new kid in school. You need to have that. There's always a sense of anxiety when you're joining an existing group of some type. So if there's a way in which you can make that journey sort of easier, then that's going to help embed these people as positive members of the community.
It's all about brand.
Absolutely.
It's all about member experience. We talk about candidate experience all the time. It's not really any different. What do they get when they sign up? What do they get in their first 10 minutes as part of the group? If you like things like rules, if you point new members to rules, then that gives them a sense of this is what it's all about and how I should interact, and they're just more likely to lean in.
Yep, well said, Adam.
So one other thing I want to just add to that about why do groups fail? Because I've seen loads of groups fail, and the biggest reason that they failed is because if you're in a go-kart, you take your foot off of the accelerator, and it basically comes to a standstill straight away. You can't, as the people behind the group, you can't take it's almost never that you could take your foot off the accelerator and expect it just to keep going. You've got to be relentless. You can't really stop.
Well, hang on. Is it possible to revive a dead group? Has any of you two got any experience of that? Like, it's dormant. LinkedIn's a classic example. People spend a bunch of time building stuff in there. Lots of investment. A group takes time to build. So I've seen people with 10,000, 15,000 active people in the group. LinkedIn pulled a few tools or whatever, and everyone left it. And then it's like, oh my goodness, how do you revive that? Or is it all dead? So, what are your thoughts on that, Shannon? Have you had the experience of trying to recover a group that's kind of already failed, so to speak?
No, well, I've been lucky. SourceCon was a thriving group when I took it over, so that was easy for me. I look at the sister company of SourceCon, ERE. That was a dying group when I first joined. There was leadership in before my time that had alienated a lot of the community that built the brand itself.
Right.
They made some poor decisions, and when you have the original members of community that are forced out of it, that is a good way to kill a community. I think the team at ERE did a fabulous job. It took them a good 3 years to turn it around and rebuild it. And I was just at the last conference about a month ago, and I was blown away with the number of people they had. It was larger than SourceCon, and it was thriving, and it was good, and good content came from it. So I think that's one example of, just what happens when you kick out members who do a good job with the community itself, because you don't think about the community, you might think of other things. But I think ERE is a good story of how it really has turned around and shown a lot of success.
I realize I'm a bit of a voyeur now, because I'm quite keen to understand the gossip behind the conflict that has generated this. But it's actually a relevant point, because sometimes you do have to have strong disciplinary measures on bad actors in the group. Now, what you're saying in your understanding of this situation, Shannon, is that it was just a wrong decision to remove this person. So tell me a little bit about what is the right motive and the right circumstances to remove a member of the group.
Well, with the case with ERE, the decision was made to only make the conference for actual leaders who work for corporations. And ERE, a lot of the community members who founded the company in the 90s and were a strong part of it were consultants, or they worked for vendors, or they were on the agency side. And so that's kind of how they got alienated. Because they were no longer now allowed to attend. And, some of those people are a little vocal online. And so, I mean, we're going back 5-6 years when this stuff happened. And now everyone's welcome at it. So, but we've had certain, when someone doesn't align with your group's mission, or they say perhaps insulting or derogatory things towards someone else, that is a good reason to remove someone. I think that's the hardest part about running the community, is all the behind scenes stuff that people have to deal with. That made SourceCon an 80-hour-a-week job for me. The normal job was about 40, and then the community was another 40. And the behind the scenes stuff was really taxing and very hard on me. And a lot of it was having to have those conversations with people who just weren't contributing, just weren't sharing. That's not what you want. And, at CareerXRoads too, everyone is vetted before they join. You have to come in with a purpose to share information. You have to be willing to do that. There are a lot of companies that Chris and Jerry won't let into our meetings or join because they don't want to share, or the company won't allow them to share, more importantly. And so we pre-vet, but with a brand like a SourceCon or an ERE or something like that, you want to make it open for everyone. And then you have to kind of say, this person is not aligning with our mission or purpose.
So this is a really good point here. Like, where do you kind of do the vetting? So do you put the gate at the front so that there's a filter and you have to say yes, no, maybe? Or do you have a more open policy and then have a reactive one, so you monitor people's behavior and then knock them out as they exhibit those behaviors? Which is the way to go, or is it contextual? Is it different? I mean,
it's different. Yeah, it's open. It works with CareerXRoads. We want everyone to come in you have to share, or this is going to be a waste of your money, basically. With SourceCon, it was reactive. It's everyone gets a chance. Whether you're a sourcer, recruiter, brander, marketer, we didn't care. People who just like sourcing, who's not in the industry, I was okay with them joining the community. As long as they have something to share and they want to contribute, then great. And you can be on the fly on the wall and just not even participate. That's fine by me too. But, it's the reactive is when you start getting the complaints, and we all know those type of behaviors online.
Yep. Fantastic. Okay, Shannon, one last thing before I let you go. One bit of advice: you got a young community manager or someone who wants to set up a community of this type. What's the one thing this person's got to know? The thing that you would impart to that person?
This is what I wish I was told 5 years ago. Build it with people, not for people. I think I said that already. And it's okay to ask for help.
Fantastic. Shannon Pritchett, you've been amazing.
Thanks. Good seeing you guys.
Take it easy.
Shannon.
She's awesome, huh? And SourceCon's loss is CareerXRoads gain there. Fantastic.
And I've just remembered I saw Shannon at CareerXRoads event in California back in about February, March, and I actually didn't ask her, "What are you doing here?" Anyway.
You're being headhunted, I assume. So well done, Jerry Crispin, on that. That's a great hire. And also, actually, Mark Todorici, who I've had the pleasure to know recently, I think he's a fantastic kind of a replacement at SourceCon as well. So I think both of those businesses are in great shape. Good Lord, who is that? Jamie Leonard, I think.
Oh, is that me?
It is.
Turn the light on, hold on.
I was going to say, maybe all these bearded dudes are in dungeons. What is going on?
Is that a bit better? Sorry.
That's miles better, Jamie.
Is that okay?
That's
like a Halo situation going on now.
It's kind of suboptimal, but it's okay for now.
Is that okay? How about this? There you go.
No. You're all right. You're looking great, mate.
Thanks,
Jamie,
buddy,
thanks for joining the group and the show. The reason why I wanted to bring you on here is, of course, you've been brilliant at this. In fact, the events business that you run, Recruitment Events Company, one of the big differences I feel about you guys is this community vibe that you like to generate, which is very different from a lot of the professional. Obviously, you guys are not professional, but I'm just imagining some other businesses. That kind of a very commercially driven, but they don't care about community at all. They are putting no effort in. Whereas that's a different play for you guys. So I just wonder how you got that sense that was important for you in your business.
I think we're talking about two different things, right? So we're talking about either an online community, which we don't do very well. So we don't do online communities very well at all. We don't have a group. We don't have a LinkedIn group. We don't have a Facebook group. But we've built community out from day one through our events. And community doesn't always have to be online. I think we have to kind of acknowledge the fact that you don't need to be online to have a community. We've always been very casual with our events and our delegates. And, we're always up for a few beers afterwards and, having a drink with the crew. And that, for me, has kind of been a differentiator for us. And that's how we've got a business. And it's a weird process we're going through at the moment because, we've gone from that kind of small events company that will, go and have drinks afterwards and, we'll all kind of get together to where we are now, which is, a much different place. So I think you have to kind of separate what's an online community and what's an actual community. So I don't think they're entwined. They can be, but I don't think they are, per se.
Yeah. I kind of agree and I disagree to a certain point, because I think there is online stuff that you do. For instance, you've got various WhatsApp groups that are there. You've got different stuff where people can communicate without necessarily being in person. But I do get it's reverse. It's the reverse of what Piret's done, for instance, which started online and then moved off. Whereas you guys have definitely been offline and then dabbling into the online. And as you mentioned, maybe this is something you wanted to do more of. And because you've identified it as potentially a weaker part of your great business.
100%. I think that you're a member of the R100 WhatsApp group. Mm-hmm. You've seen what that community is. That started because we would invite members down to Whitstable, which is where we run our summits, and the WhatsApp group was just to make sure that no one ever lost each other. Whitstable's a place where after a few beers you can lose each other quite quickly. So it just started as a group of people that were, in case you get lost, everyone's here. And then once we finished that first summit, all of a sudden you had people saying, oh, by the way, can anyone recommend ATS? By the way, what does everyone think of this agency, this headhunter? And it just grew and grew. So we just kept adding people back to that WhatsApp group, and it is the core of, that community. There's over 100 different messages a day, and it's mostly recommendations on vendors, like more than anything else. That's more of what we get than anything else. We don't have a kind of a moderators or anything. WhatsApp is really fucking difficult to moderate. You've got to have a phone number. You can't segment it. We tried to put it into Slack, and it was a fucking disaster, an out-and-out disaster. We tried to use
Tell me about this, Jamie, because that was I was actually monitoring that experiment a little bit.
Yeah,
I saw
terrible.
Yeah, because WhatsApp is kind of limited in exactly the sense you mentioned.
Yeah.
But you try to migrate an online group into a different place, and it didn't work.
No.
Tell us about that experience.
So it got so big. So we've got 110 members, I suppose, when we put kind of people like yourself in and the team. And it was really difficult to manage because there was no segmentation at all. So you were literally like, you know what it's like. It's just a stream, right? And unless you're willing to keep up with 150 notifications a day, people were tuning out. And people saying, I'm not part of this because I can't be bothered to read through 150 different notifications every day. I've got stuff to do. So we was like, well, Slack, well, look, it's worked for DVR. Big fan of DVR. Okay, maybe we migrate to Slack because we use Slack as a business. And, there's 12 of us, so it's not a difficult thing to manage. We tried to migrate to Slack, varying levels of success. Everyone kind of went over and everyone went, yeah, cool. And I think unless they're using that platform every day on a daily basis, it just gets lost. Notifications get turned off. And that's why WhatsApp was so popular with the RO100, because they was already using it for their team, their families, their friends. And it was just another channel within it. Now, that does come with its own issues. We have had a lot of situations. We've had some situations where people accidentally post stuff into the RO100 WhatsApp group that's probably meant for their friends or their family. It does cause some embarrassing situations sometimes.
Love you, honey.
Was that?
Love you, honey.
Yeah. Well, a little bit worse than that, if I'm being perfectly honest.
I guess
in fact, a lot worse than that, if I'm being perfectly honest. But we watched the Slack group completely die over the course of a month or two, and just when it's not working, let's put them back onto WhatsApp. We migrated everyone back to WhatsApp, and again, you've seen it today, hon. There's 120 different messages today about vendors and all the rest of it.
On that note, just wanted to follow up on this, Jamie. I think it's really difficult to port community from one online platform to the other because people have got habituated to it. Are you all right, mate?
Sorry, mate. I'm joking.
No worries. Can you do that more quietly, mate? This is a live show, fella. No, sorry. It's fine. But very good. I mean, worthy efforts because yes, Slack is probably a better tool for this. And DVR is a great example of that. I had the pleasure of playing a small part at the start of that. 4,000 recruiters now, and it's predominantly a Slack channel. But WhatsApp was where RL100, your group, basically was, and you got to keep it kind of locked into that platform. I guess very hard to migrate over. Maybe you could parallel process at some point, but it is. But
as far as I spoke to Matt Buckland about this yesterday. Didn't the DVR start as a WhatsApp group and then moved to Slack?
It did.
And what was that? That was you guys. There's like 5 of you guys and moved that. DVR is a hell of a community, by the way, as well. A lot of time for those guys. It does a lot of really good stuff for the industry. But I think they went from WhatsApp to Slack. But I think, and you might tell me differently, it's a lot of kind of tech recruiters, so who are probably on Slack already.
Correct.
We were trying to move global heads of resource onto Slack, and it just was not happening at all.
Yeah, it's all about daily active use. So I was actually in the group, the WhatsApp group. I think I actually managed the WhatsApp group back in the day, and we got to about 30 people. And the decision was made, okay, let's move it because it was a better tool and everyone was using Slack anyway, natively day to day in the group. So DVR generally, even though it's very open for any in-house recruiter, I think if you're not a daily active user of Slack, you're probably going to miss out on a lot of that stuff and not habitually get into it. But as you say, WhatsApp is in terms of personal use, much more widely used than Slack. So the right place to put RO100, I guess.
No, the one thing we have done, so we sorry, go on, Adam.
Sorry, I was just going to say it's not just about whether you're on Slack or not, because I've been on. I was in your group, Jamie, on Slack, and I just found, because I was using Slack myself for my own business and stuff like that, if I wanted to know what was going on in the other one, I had to actively go into it and go take a look. So I'm not even sure. I mean, DBR is an absolute freak. It's the only one that I know that is that.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with this as well, by the way. There's lots of Slack communities globally, but in the recruitment industry, it's the only group that is on Slack that's effective. And, I did Recruiting Brainfood has a Facebook group. I actually did a poll on the subscribers. Say, look, what do you want us to do? Where do you want to do us to do the group on? And Facebook was the overwhelming favorite to that. And that was exactly because the audience of Brainfood generally is more agnostic. It's going to be agency, vendor, whatever. Everyone has Facebook, so it made sense to put it there. Slack came in as number 2. WhatsApp actually came in number 3. LinkedIn got 1 vote. So it's a complete exit of the market for those boys. Anyway, Jamie, really good at learning a few things from you. You know what? I've just noticed Bill is online here. And I'm going to try and bring him on because he's actually one of the big inspirations of recruitment communities generally. And you and I had the pleasure of having a few drinks with Bill yesterday on at True London, True 10, one of the big events, I think, of the year, simply because it was a big anniversary, and also, sadly, a big shift for Bill, in the sense that's no longer going to be the thing that he organizes entirely. So anyway.
It's not a thing he's going to organise. It might be something he's going to be at. So
what on earth is happening here? No, Bill.
Don't know.
There he is.
Hey, Bill.
Oh.
I seem to be fading in and out. You got me?
Craziness. Bill, you there? How you doing, mate? How's your head? Actually, why am I asking you how's your head? Your head's always going to be fine. You're immune to alcohol.
My head's fine. My voice is a bit croaky, but yeah, we're in the game.
Fantastic. Okay, we get some craziness here. I hope that's going to settle down.
It's like kaleidoscope.
It is. But Bill, I think you've been on the show just listening into the chat here. You've been one of the great community builders in our industry. I just wanted to direct a question to you. What is, in your view, the most important thing for a community organizer to know when they're running something like a True or running a community of some type?
I think 2 things. One is they're not running it and they're not in charge.
Very good point.
Right.
Okay.
And I think probably we've done the opposite of everyone else in terms of our approach to community, I think, which is what's made True a little bit different. I understand the reasons people do things. I absolutely love events like Wreckfest and Jamie's events in particular. I'm in some of the sourcing events, SOSU again. I think communities that build around events are a little bit different in that the community makes people want to be an event in order to actually connect with each other. It's our digital activity that actually increases that. I think when if you like, I've always looked to try and disrupt and do things a little bit different. I think what we did with True, it was never intended to be a community. It was never intended to be an event. It just grew organically, and certain things have happened at certain times. We don't have any digital group, if you like. We don't have a kind of True place where people meet. It's very, very much a physical community in which people come together. I think the difference we had is, I'm hearing about members getting barred and thrown out of groups and things like that. We've never barred anyone. I think the group, the community has always policed itself, and I very much had the attitude of we don't have, which is what I'm trying to bring into HROS, the thinking of we don't have members, we have participants.
Bill, you mentioned something really interesting about the kind of hyper-inclusive view of True, in the sense that everyone is a participant, everyone's welcome. Is that entirely true in every case, though? Because what if you have sort of a character that other people might describe as a problematic character? Do you have a policy there, or have you got any?
We usually make them a track leader. We usually, and you've seen that happen lots of times. We kind of go, okay, you've got plenty to say, so why don't you go and say it in a place where people have the opportunity to shoot you down, and let's see if you speak the same way you do on a keyboard as you do when you're sitting in a chair, faced by of your peers. And it seems to work, right? It seems to have worked over the years. I think one of the things I've always felt about True is because of the way the participants feel about it, it's been very self-policing. So if you've got a vendor in there who's pitching too much, people will say, you need to stop pitching, fella. Or they'll just stand up and walk out of your session and do it very physically. I think Jamie wrote a blog post a long time ago, and he probably doesn't even remember it. But I think it was his very first True that he attended, and one of the things he wrote about was, it's the first time where he hosted a session where you get the immediate feedback of people just standing up and walking away.
Yeah, that's fucking raw as well. Like that is raw. There's like 10 other tracks. People can leave your track and go to another one, and that is an amazing thing about the format. Is if people don't like what you're saying, they just leave. That. You kind of get that real quick.
You know what? I love the immediacy.
You sit on your own. You know pretty well. It's not quite gone to plan.
You know what? The immediacy of feedback is so important, isn't it? There's no kind of latency in True, as you say. People either directly have that, will contest that narrative. If somebody's coming in saying stuff that is challengeable, people are going to do it. And to your point, Jamie, you can get up and walk out if you're really outraged by this, or you're not happy, bored, or whatever. You can go.
It's like you definitely don't need Slido at True.
Yes.
Because if you want feedback, look at how many chairs are empty when you finish your track. Like that is a thing. It's insane. Amazing stuff.
Yeah, I think we've always had to. One of the reasons we've always had to go that way is because it's not a presentation. It doesn't have a fixed format. So you might go to a session, for example, on employer brand, and because it's the participants who are sharing the information, you don't know what direction that's going to take, and it might go in a direction that isn't actually very useful or interesting to you, whereas you thought perhaps the title was interesting. So I think what we get from that is we've always had to have that opportunity of people getting up and moving about, and that means you really have to think about your track. But it also means it's self-policing. I've never had to step in and talk to anyone about anything because other people within the group or within the event have kind of pulled someone on one side and said, "Oh, right, we need to have a chat about that." Or, and we've seen instances where some people maybe from other communities have come in and felt, and it's become quite raw or confrontational, and we've seen people step up and step into that and take the steam out of it and pull people on one side and say you need to not do that. And I can think of a few events over the years where that's been really clear, and we've got some very, very strong, you were there yesterday, we have some very strong personalities. We have a lot of people leading sessions or participants whose reputations might be that they're quite spiky and quite fiery, and yet they either seem to moderate themselves a bit or tone themselves down a bit and know how to behave in a group.
Yeah, it's one of the unique qualities of that, Bill. I mean, and I'm not entirely convinced that, I do believe a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is emergent and it wasn't a strategy. But I'm not entirely convinced that
from day one, it was only ever going to be one event. We've never had a strategy. We've always had a reaction. If we have a strategy, is that everything, and sometimes I'm sure that's worked against us in a lot of ways. But it's never been a strategy. It's always been a reaction in the same way as, I made a decision. You've seen it a few years ago. I stood up at the end of True London and said, look, if this doesn't, I looked around at all the people who are leading tracks and running sessions and said, if this doesn't become more diverse, if this doesn't become a more diverse group in terms of age, in terms of gender, in terms of the topics we're talking about, if we just look like another recruiting event, then I'm just not going to do it anymore. And that was always the way. That was always going to be the way that if, and you've seen the reaction to that kind of 2 years on. I think you probably remember me having that conversation, talking about that at the King's Head. You've seen the reaction, everything from the thing that really cheered me up a little bit with the video from different people talking about what True meant to them was at the end that the biggest thing most people said was it's inclusive. And Lisa left her message in sign language, and all the rest in sign language. You've got lots of people from the LGBTIQ community who haven't been at recruiting events before, who are now reasonably well established on the circuit who's speaking and saying it's inclusive, everybody's welcome, and that's what we've always wanted.
You know what, Bill? That's amazing that you say all of that. And just talking about True now, and the reason why this title of this show is a kind of true tribute, is because I personally am very sad to hear that it may be the last one that you're going to do, and everyone shares that,
They haven't died. I'm looking at stuff, and I felt when I was reading my Facebook, it was a bit like I was reading my obituary. Which is kind of nice to read an obituary when you're alive. I'm not going out of the industry. I'm not getting involved in events. I just feel that at 10 years, True, and the whole point of it has always been it has to be bigger and about much more than Bill Boorman, right? It can't be just a Bill Boorman show. So otherwise, we've completely failed in everything that we believe in. So it's the right time. It needs some more steering in terms of the sponsors. Yesterday's event, it cost over 20 grand to put it on. There's kind of 90 track leaders,
2 organisers,
with me and Fran, trying to organise that. It's reached a point where if we want to make these shows bigger and better and more inclusive and bring more people in, then it needs somebody else with a different skill set to drive it. And I don't believe we can ever move away from. I don't think the participants will allow it to move away from the vision or the attitude or the culture, because it's their event. It just needs a different host who can organise things a little bit better.
Right. So tell us what the plan is, Bill.
I shouldn't say organise things better. I should probably say organise things.
Organise things. Full stop.
If only there was someone who could do that.
Well, Bill, we've got well over time here, so I'm going to just leave one final thing here, because basically I had a chat with Johnny Campbell afterwards and was chatting with other people saying, what the hell happens now? Because it would be a damn shame if True never happened again. But we're all looking around at each other thinking, who's going to take it on? So I would actually, on behalf of the community, want to sort of speak to you about this. And I wanted to see whether you could give us any direction as to what to do. Have you got any thoughts on this, man?
I feel like this is the life of Brian, where people are saying, who shall we follow? If this community and these events don't work and they filter out and they can't sort themselves out, I've been an abject failure in everything I've tried to achieve in the last 10 years, right? So I think it's stronger. I'm delighted that I've had conversations with Jamie about the Recruitment events company taking it on, because for 2 reasons really drive that for me. One is I think there's the Recfest side. The other thing is I think Jamie and Lois get it and understand that if there's too much tinkering with the value of it, it's not going to be successful. The whole thing, from the way in which we do tickets, that the inclusiveness nature of it's, which is a very different step even for Recruitment events company, of it's not exclusively everyone's welcome. It doesn't matter whether you're a vendor, whatever you are. And of all the people I've talked to about it, and we've had 3 or 4 conversations with people who were quite serious and could take it on. I think Jamie and the team are the ones who get it and understand. And I think that's because we've kind of grown our events and our businesses in parallel in many ways at different times. So I think we're in the right place, and I know that we are in better hands to make it bigger and make it lasting for the future.
And I think, look, just to echo that, Bill, as well, absolutely delighted that you've kind of passed the reins to us to run through. We're over the moon. The team is super excited about it. It will remain the same as it has been so far. Super inclusive, all about passion for the business. Bill, you will still be running the days. Don't think you're getting away from that. That's the thing. You will still be called upon to run the days. But we love the True format. True was the spark that kind of give us that kind of credence to go and start an event business. You know, as I'm sure it has a lot of companies in the past. So we kind of feel that we owe it to True and Bill to kind of take this on now. And, you know, I'm not saying take it upwards, but definitely take it forward. With Bill absolutely still running the show, still open and inclusive as every other event that Bill's done so far. So we're pumped. We're excited. You know, True 2020, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm quite psyched about that.
Amazing. I'm really, really pleased to hear that, guys. I was wondering what was going to happen, and my fear was that, Bill, you would leave it, and then it would be up to some idiot to step in and then it would be a bun fight over the brand and all the rest of it. It would have been a nightmare. So I'm really pleased that Jay, you're stepping in and taking this on. I can't.
To be fair, Hans, some idiot has stepped in. It's just me. It's this idiot. I mean, let's be honest.
It's this idiot, and you're the right idiot.
You'd rather this idiot than anyone else. To be fair, I'm a pretty decent idiot. So.
Exactly, you're the right idiot for the job, Jamie. So listen, I think we are well over time, so we have to say goodbye right now. So thank you very much for your time, Jamie, Leonard, Bill Boorman. You've been awesome. Everyone else, thank you for watching the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Fran says hi. Amazing. Have a good weekend, everybody. We will be back. Okay. Hi, Fran. Okay. I'm cutting the live stream. We're out. I will see everyone next week, where we are doing another Brainfood Live, and I believe we're talking tech unemployment with Rob McCargow of PwC. And also Yvette Cameron of HR Insights, I think. So it will be a fantastic show. Thank you. Make sure you tune into that. Everybody, have a good weekend. I'll see you next week.